Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. I'm really happy to have you join us for this last discussion of the 2024 Swiss Film Club by the Embassy of Switzerland in the US. My name is Emily, and I work in the Public Diplomacy and Culture section at the Embassy here in Washington, D.C. We are very excited to be concluding this edition this year with the wonderful film Becoming Giulia, and I'm thrilled to be joined by its protagonist, Giulia Tonelli, who is calling in here from Switzerland and has taken time out of her very busy schedule. So thank you, Giulia. We really appreciate it. And this film club has been going for 5 years now. We're in our fifth year. We've shown over 40 films. And so I'm very thankful to our audience members for tuning in to see these wonderful Swiss productions and for these discussions as well. If you have any questions at any point during the discussion, feel free to write them in the chat or by clicking the Q&A in the right side of the discussion and broadcast, but people may also be watching this recorded discussion later, so hopefully we'll answer your questions about the film. As I mentioned, I'm really thrilled to be joined by Giulia Tonelli here, and she has had an amazing career, so I'll do my best to summarize it before we get into the questions. She completed her dance diploma at the Ballet School of the Vienna State Opera Ballet. She's originally from Italy. And then she had an engagement with the Royal Ballet of Flanders. And then she received in 2009 a soloist contract with Ballet Zurich in Switzerland. She was promoted to principal soloist in 2018 and had her farewell performance in 2024. And during her time with Zurich Ballet, she performed many roles in many diverse ballets with several different choreographers. She can talk about that a bit maybe. And as we know from this film, for those of you who watched it, she appeared as the protagonist in a documentary, Becoming Giulia, which was directed by Laura Kerr. The film has gotten a lot of critical acclaim and attention around Europe and in the US, and it received the Audience Award at the Zurich Film Festival when it premiered in 2022, and it follows her balance between her prima ballerina career and her life as a mother as well. So we'll hear all about that. Giulia, thank you again for joining us from Switzerland.
You're welcome. Hello.
And all right, well, we'll get right into the questions. So to start, I want to sort of go back to the very beginning and hear from you a bit more about your dancing background, how you got started, and also ultimately how you ended up in Switzerland.
So, hello everyone, and thank you, Emily, for this. Really, it's important for me to be here with you and share a little bit of my own story. So ballet, I started very early age. I was 3 years old, but it wasn't a hobby for a very long time. So my story is a little bit atypical when we compare to other prima ballerina that became professional, in the sense that normally in order to become professional, you need to enter a certain ballet academy at a young age, let's say around 10, 11, 12, so that it gives you a base, a formation that you will require for your own career. And in my case, I was somehow refusing the idea of becoming more professional, even though my teachers in ballet school in Italy, they were pushing my parents that I should have tried for better schools, but I completely didn't want that. I think part of me was a little bit scared. Maybe I felt that I had a talent or something special, and somehow I didn't think that I wanted to proceed with that, because my family, I come from people who have studied. My parents have done university, so it was clear for me I will just follow the same path. And it was only when I was 15, 16, so very late. So you have to imagine I was just doing ballet 3 times a week, which is little, very little. I started to feel the need to make it something more professional, but it was late. So I was much far behind compared to people my age. And I tried to audition for better schools. They took me in Florence. It was Balletto di Toscana was already at least a school that was giving classes every day. But everybody would remark that I was still technically much more behind than the other girls. And then, like in a movie, because this these things, like I was telling you before, sometimes in life we have control over certain things, sometimes we don't. I took a workshop, a ballet workshop that was held by the director of the Wiener Staatsoper Ballettschule. It was Birkmeyer, his name. It was only 3 days workshop. So basically, it was just giving classes. I was already 17 years old. And at the end of the workshop, where I felt miserable because there were much more talented girls than me, he stopped me there and said, "You have something special. Would you like to join the Vienna State Opera Ballet School?" I thought this was a dream. I didn't even think it was real. I asked him twice, "Are you sure you're meaning me?" He was laughing. He said, "Yeah, you have a lot of technical weaknesses, but you have something. I see a light and you should try and come." And so that's how my life completely changed. I went to Vienna. I was 18. I was taking ballet classes with people of my age, plus point work with girls of 9 years old to just, try to get back all the technical skills that I was lacking. But somehow I always say this, that I thought it was my biggest weakness of having had a professional path much later than everyone else. In the end, I must admit, maybe it was also a safety, because I arrived in this difficult environment with a formed head and a mature head. So I knew what I wanted, and then I really went for it, and I completely followed this goal, but with a certain consciousness, not just, with the motto, "Oh, you have to do that since the age of 5." And I met a lot of friends that stopped with 18 because they couldn't anymore. They were already somehow burn out in their head with the difficulties that this environment, of course, also has. So that's a little bit how ballet has chosen me, almost. And like you said, Emily, I went to several companies. I started in Vienna. I went to Royal Ballet of Flanders, which was the first company that offered me the job. And after 7 years there, I thought it was time for a change, because I was getting comfortable, and Heinz Spörlich offered me a contract here in Zurich, and I thought this was a great opportunity that I couldn't miss.
Wonderful. And I love what you said about, having sort of, when you're starting your official ballet journey later, you already really know that you want it, and you are, I feel like some of the most beautiful dancers are ones who've really had to fight, or maybe started later, but they have, like you said, that special something in the soul. So I really love that. And speaking of sort of being vulnerable and sharing your soul and your art with other people, I'm curious to hear more about the filming of Becoming Giulia, and how you initially made the connection with the director, Laura, and how long filming took.
Yeah, it's a good question, because also this, again, like how in life things happen, there is a certain constellation. I knew Laura from before the film, because she contacted me via Facebook, actually, after having seen me on stage, because she thought that I had a very strong charisma on stage. So she was already thinking on way how to use me for future projects. Then de facto nothing ever happened with that. So we took some coffees here and there. She was imagining how could she use my face, really, like she was really thinking about acting more than anything. And then the years passed by, and then she heard that I was pregnant, that I was going to have my first baby. And then when she somehow made this click of thinking, okay, I have in mind a certain movie that I want to make. And actually at the beginning, she wanted to portray 3 different women from the artistic world, but in different fields. So let's say me, the dancer, a choreographer, and somebody else. In the end, this didn't work out. So in the end, the movie became about me only. But that was the very beginning. That was the idea that she had. But yeah, having said yes to that film, first of all, I had no clue what was going to be, because you don't have an idea with a documentary. You basically say yes to the unknown, right? She kind of explained that she wanted to portray the path that would have led me towards the scene again, but this has happened live. So I was very insecure about how would I be after my birth, how would I be able to dance again. And in all of that, Laura was here in my life, which was very, at time as well, very difficult. Very, I mean, I can't deny that. You have somebody in your apartment with the first baby, you're a first time mother. I had no clue what to do with this baby, in the sense that he would be crying and shouting while she's there filming, and you're very insecure and vulnerable. So there were many moments in which I wanted to stop this film, and I was like, I can't go on. Like, it's too much. Also, having all the attention in the opera, it made me feel uncomfortable, because we all know that it's not an environment always very easy, where people might have some jealousy. So you suddenly come back with camera filming you. That attracted some jealousy, definitely. And I don't like that. I always love to prove myself with facts and not with how to say, with images. So for me, it was like, I'm the same person. Like, I didn't ask for this film to happen. But now I can say I am super happy and proud that this film is out there. And I think I have to thank Laura as well for not having given up on me, because I did try to stop this film many, many times. And the result in the end, I think it's worth seeing, also for a lot of women. The message is there, not just for dancer. I think it's a message that can be shared by many women in different fields.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. And thank you as a viewer and a woman for sharing the story as well. I think it was really courageous to sort of be vulnerable and show your insecurities, because that's so much what everyone is experiencing. And you think you're alone, but to see a film like this, you're not. And so I'm curious, you sort of mentioned already that you were a bit uncomfortable with, maybe how your colleagues would react. What was sort of the feedback that you received, or have you heard from other dancers?
The thing is, ballet is a very elitary world. So we are not used to be, how do you say, it's funny, right? Because it is a job in which you present yourself, you're there on stage, the public comes and then cheers you. But what we do, underneath, let's say, it's very secret. It's very our thing. It's like going in a surgical operative room and filming there. It's like one of those environments where you don't know so much about it, and so you're not used to have camera constantly filming and trying to portray this secret out there. And so there is a certain vulnerability, sensitivity in trying to protect what we do. At the same time, it's not just that, it's also how can we say, you feel very exposed in a world where there is one director decided for everyone else. And so I didn't like having all this attention on me, like in the sense of, I'm not the director here, and so it stressed me about what are my colleagues going to think, what is my director going to think, what is the opera going to think, because I didn't have the control over that film. Like, this is what for me was the most important, that people understood that Laura was her own boss and she was deciding which scenes, what she wanted. But of course, during the film, we became close. I just didn't want people to think that I'm guiding this behind in the backstage, because that wasn't the case. So I was just scared of that, scared of some kind of judgment. By now, I would like to hug that Giulia at the time and say, you you made yourself so stressed for nothing. It's like, but there was a reasoning for which I was so stressed. Like, it is not very typical to have that sort of attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is since the end of the film, you actually have had a second child. And I'm curious to see how the experience was different with your first child, in terms of coming back to the studio and the stage and finding that balance again.
It's a very good question, Emily, because this is basically the reason why I'm trying to speak up now. Like I said, in the film, you see a Giulia that fought like crazy to go back. And I did it in a way that I wouldn't recommend to anyone, in the sense that fighting is right, but always having in mind to respect your body and yourself. What I tried to do was almost neglecting the fact that motherhood had changed me. But of course, with the first child, you don't realize that immediately. You realize it slowly. You become a mother during the process. You're not a mother from day one. You become a mom with, sleepless night, with getting to know your child, with understanding which kind of person he is or she is, with your own anxiety, with the fears, with the first um, little achievement that he or she might do. So when I became pregnant with the second, I tried to apply exactly the same system that I did apply with the first, because I thought, hey, it worked. I was back after 10 weeks, crazy. After 10 weeks, I was back in the studio, back in shape. I lost all my kilos. I was ready to perform. I did a tourney in Australia when my second boy was only 4 months old. I was dancing all of the main roles until you crash. And I crashed. And you crash and you realize that you can't go on like that, and that you should simply acknowledge that it's okay to be fragile and it's okay to be different. And that does not mean that my artistry is less because I am asking for some comprehension. The problem is that in the moment I asked for this comprehension, there was no comprehension. And so they basically said that, we have to be all the same and it does not matter having a difficult time. I had to choose between my mental health or my passion. And I don't think this is correct. This is the reason why I'm not in Zurich anymore. So that is for me the major things that has changed from the first to the second child. And more consciousness about the role of the mother, and about how much I needed to take care of myself more in order to do this job the way I wanted to do it, which I love it, but not by trying to, your child is sick and you don't even ask a permission to stay home because you're scared of the consequences. Things like that, they should not happen. That's a bit my battle now.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And I think, so many women, whether they're in the dance world or in any world, we were talking before in medicine, professors at universities, I think, are facing very similar circumstances. So again, it's really great to as difficult as it is for you to share maybe and to have experienced that, to then know you're not alone. And I think really for the dance world specifically, ballet has been viewed as very female dominated on stage, but the picture is still quite different in terms of choreography and leadership and other administrative positions. And so I'm curious to hear, maybe on a hopeful note, what you hope for the future of the ballet world so that it can be more equitable and friendly for women and for parents especially.
A very good question, Emily. Unfortunately, I would love to think that is a question of gender. It is not. Like, that's maybe for me the saddest thing was that now we have a female director in Zurich, and of course there was a lot of hope that things would just change, but it doesn't work like that, because it depends on the person and it depends what are your goals as a director. So for me, the key of that answer is, are you an empathetic person? Yes or not? If you are, you're going to make changes that go towards what you just said, more parent friendly, let's say. If you're not an empathetic person, that's not going to happen. So my thought on that is, in order for dancers to be protected, I think there should be some rules that the institution apply that are not depending on whoever is coming to direct, if you see what I mean. Like, we should be protected no matter what, because in the moment that out of free artistic choice, you take a director that is at the peak of the pyramid, that can decide and do whatever they want, there is a huge risk that this kind of mechanism that are not healthy, that are not right, that are being perpetuated by years and years, even though there is a slight improvement, but it's too small, they just keep going. So it cannot depend on the empathy of the person who is going to come and direct, if you see what I mean. Because if this person has a good heart, great. If it doesn't have it, then what do we do? Then the consequence will just not be nice. So that is a little bit my battle now, that the dancers, they should have a voice. The dancers, they should count. They shouldn't be just numbers. If a director comes in a new company, if you think about it, what happens normally is the director comes, they want to take their people, the people they know, and so they might fire all the people of the previous directorship. And if you think about that, in the moment that you have mothers over 35, they're the first one to go. They're the first one to go. And that's not okay. So that should be an institution that protects us and say, no, these people are untouchable. Of course, if you are still in shape and performing well, I'm not saying you should be protected if you are lazy and you don't want to work anymore. But if the ability is there, it should not become a question of, oh no, but I want my people, and so the people of the previous directorship, they should leave, because otherwise this makes the ballet world very, how to say, it calls the abuse very easily, because it's too easy. We become numbers. We don't have any impact, any voice. Our artistry does not matter. It's like, comes a new person, they decide you're not worth it, you're out. So again, I know it's complicated, and I know that you can't force a director to work with a dancer that it might not really be his or her style, but maybe give, let's say, 2 years before making any changements. Maybe you need to have 2 years first to get to know the company and to get to work with them before you can decide who can stay and who can leave. So that would already be a certain, if you see what I mean, a certain pillar of security for us, not to fear every time there is a change of directorship, and not to count on the, like I said, on the human qualities of the person who's going to come, because that is too vulnerable. Like it could be great director, it could not be. So like you say, it is a very male dominated field, yes. But for me, the point is not really about male female, because again, if the female tries to be harder than the male, then the change is not happening. So it's how can we protect the dancers more by setting rules that simply make us, my God, we do a job that is super hard and it should be recognized. You see what I mean? Not with 1 year contract, but with, let's say, 5 years. If we don't want to take the example of the northern country, that they have permanent jobs after 2 years, that might then tend to become a problem because people might sit and might become lazy. Okay, let's say not permanent yet, but 5 years, 6 years, that already gives a certain security for people to feel they can build up a life. They could maybe become parent because they know they cannot be thrown out immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. And it sounds like, yeah, it really needs to come from the institution, and maybe that's also not just in Europe, but we were talking about in the US, and
Absolutely. I really believe
universal.
that it's important that we speak about these things, because when people tell me in other fields we have the same, I always say, yeah, but you guys don't have our contracts. We are not well paid. I mean, as dancers, you don't earn much money. We have these non-permanent jobs. So we are too, how can I say, for the amount of difficulties that you go through to become a dancer, then it's too fragile, the career, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And that has to change, because
Yeah.
be a dancer is an amazing thing, but only if it's respected. Otherwise, it just can call abuse. And I've seen a lot of colleagues of mine stopping, being in burnout, because it's just too much, or you just feel nothing, because comes a person that basically decides that you're worth nothing and nobody does a thing. So I think that should change if we want a better ballet field.
Well, maybe you've already touched on this, but what is one thing that you hope audiences will take away from the film, and maybe dancers specifically, if there are young dancers who see the film, what is one thing you hope they will take away from it?
I hope for the young dancers, I hope that my example give them the possibility to think that it's possible to be both. It is. Again, I don't want to now say that it's not. It is, but only at certain condition that unfortunately I didn't always foresee, because I thought that the only way to do it was to neglect, like I said, my new role. But I hope it gives a message that we can fight more to become normal people and dancer at the same time, because there is so much that you learn as an artist by being a mother or a father. I have also colleagues of mine that are fathers in the dance field. You become a better artist, and it shouldn't be seen as, oh wow, okay, she's ready to go or he's ready to go. On the contrary, if we finally give voice to the power of becoming a parent and to the fact that it makes not only the society going on, because you create so that the society keeps on going. I mean, if you think about it, the society should help parents in general in every field to make it possible for us to, follow our passion, but at the same time have a certain ground to become normal people, because it's beautiful and it's possible.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's a really positive thing to take away, that we can, look towards the future.
I mean, I
And
think I should, on a positive note, say I've been now invited to guest with Scottish Ballet. And the fact that I'm 41 and I have two children did not matter to them at all. On the contrary, they were like, this is going to give an example to the company. And that's how I think this should be the approach. I am still very motivated. I'm still very much in shape. And for them, it's just a plus that I am 41, still doing Nutcracker on point, classical ballet, having two children that run around the studio, and that every dancer might think or dream one day it could be me out there doing that.
that's wonderful. It's great to hear that the example does exist, and we just need to universally see it a bit more in the dance world. So speaking of you said you're involved in different projects, but I'm specifically interested, since you've been in Switzerland for so many years, as the embassy here in the US, we're always trying to bring our US audiences closer to Switzerland. And so I'm curious to hear from you, getting away from the film now, a bit more about the dance landscape in Switzerland and different projects you've been involved in and what you think makes it special.
I mean, I think Switzerland is incredible for the amount of opportunities that offers. Like, the cultural scene is immense. And I now presented my own project to the city of Zurich. So the fact that this kind of platform exists, it's fantastic. The fact that there is a certain support to the Freie Szene, we call it, like the non-professional, let's say, non-professional, sorry, the non-institutional fields. The fact that there are plenty of organizations that are there to support the artists. And there is a network in Switzerland. It's not so big. It's like in every city there is a theater. So I find it's fascinating, and it means there is a ground for improvement and for giving to art and culture the value that they deserve. And I think Switzerland for that has all of the cards. So we just need to know how to play them still to make improvements in that sense.
That's great. And so you mentioned you are guesting with the Scottish Ballet. People who are familiar with the dance world know it's Nutcracker time, especially here in the US. It's very busy. So I'm curious to hear, in addition to this, what is next for you, and what are some of the projects you have coming up?
So I have, right, like you said, now I am with Scottish Ballet. And then after this, I will take part into a little Swiss tour with Edward Klug, that is very renowned choreographer. Actually, he came a lot to the opera in Zurich, but he's doing something else. And he asked me, so we met a few years ago in the Opera House Zurich, and he thought, hey, I would love to do a project just with you and a couple of more dancers. It's going to be Don Juan. It's like a big production that he created now for the Ballet du Capitole. And we will do like a redacted version here in Switzerland. So we will be touring at the end of March in a few Swiss cities. And after this, I will be the Carmen of a very dear colleague, ex-colleague of mine, for the Koningsfelden Festival. He's going to create a new ballet called Carmen, and I will be his Carmen. So that's for what concerned the ballet. And then I will be starting my master in the University of Bern for dance science, because I thought it's important to give my contribute as well in studying something I dedicated my life to. So yes.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds like you'll be very busy. You're definitely not taking
Yeah,
over.
I think that's the thing. I might be more busy than I was when working.
Right. But I think that's also the dancer mentality, right? It's hard to slow
Yeah,
down
it's hard
sometimes.
not to do. Exactly. It's hard not to do, but I must say there is something beautiful and empowering in being your own boss, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Being able to decide what do you say yes to, what do you say no to. And again, I think this kind of flexibility is very, very needed, especially when you're a parent, to be able
Yeah.
to decide and to, like as a parent you become very efficient. I see it with my husband. He's working less in terms of hours but more intensively. It's a pity
Yeah.
that in the ballet they don't allow us to do that, because we would be able, like as a mature dancer that has done 25-year career, you don't need the same amount of time that a 20-year-old need, because you're faster in knowing your body, in understanding what the choreographer needs. So it would be nice that this is valued. It would be already a first step to make it possible for parents to go on with their passion, for example.
Yeah. Well, Giulia, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us today, for sharing all of this. I know, again, a lot of it's very personal, but I think it, in speaking out and sharing your story, it really is helpful to so many people.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, likewise. And thank you to all of you who are watching, who will watch, who have watched the film. We really appreciate it. And this is our last Swiss Film Club of 2024, as I mentioned. But if you're interested to see what we have planned for 2025, please follow the embassy on social media. It's Swiss Embassy USA, and also on our cultural newsletter to stay tuned to more of our cultural content. And in the meantime, I wish everyone a wonderful holiday season and a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye.